Hello, boys and girls. This is Miss Williams. I'm so happy to be here with you today to talk to you about retelling. Retelling is telling the story in your own words. And what we're going to use to help us retell the story, some fiction stories this week, is our story map. But we'll get to that shortly. Right now, I want us to review and go over our different story elements. So let's go. In all fiction books, there are story elements. Story elements help us to understand what we are reading. We don't just read to read, we read to understand what we are reading. We are going to learn and review about 5 different story elements. Let's call these our story element 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each finger will stand for a different story element. The thumb will stand for characters. And not just our character, but we want to pay attention to our main character. The characters are the people in the story. They can be animals, people, or even things. The index finger will be the setting. There's a house. I wonder what setting means. The setting is when and where the story takes place. There can be more than one setting in a story. So here's a store. That could be a setting, an airplane, or you see a sun. So this setting is in the daytime, or you could have a setting at the nighttime. The next finger will represent the events in the story. And boys and girls, remember, events are just the things that happen in the story. We don't want to look at all the things. We want to look at the most important things that happen in the story. So think of beginning, middle, and end, B-M-E. The beginning is the B, the middle is the M, and the end is the E. Okay, 4. Our ring finger will be the problem of the story. And remember, when you hear problem, you want to think of dun, dun, dun. Because this is when something goes wrong in the story. So the problem is when something goes wrong in the story. There can be more than one problem in the story, but I like to think of whatever the problem, the main problem is, it's probably going to have something to do with the main character and something to do with the title of the story. And our pinky finger will be for the solution. Woo! How our problem is fixed. So the solution is how the problem is fixed or solved. So usually this will make the character happy and they'll feel better. So remember the story element 5. Characters, settings, your events, beginning, middle, and end, problem, and solution. So as we're reading our fiction book today, we're going to use our hand. That's one of your strategies that you can use to help you retell. And now let's go to our other strategy that we will use to help you better understand what you've read. Our next strategy is going to be somebody wanted, but so then. So a summary tells you what the story is about by including the most important details. We're going to use the rainbow to help us remember what is important. Somebody. Who the story is about. Wanted. What are they trying to do? So, the somebody is our character, our main character. Now, what are they trying to do? Or, what do they want? And And how do they plan to see it through? So your somebody is your main character. Your wanted is what is your main character trying to do? What do they want? And how do they plan on seeing it through? That's your wanted. So somebody wanted, but what keeps the character from getting what he or she wanted? So this is the problem. Another word for problem is conflict. Okay, so when you get up into 3rd through 5th grade, you're going to hear conflict. They might not say problem too much anymore. So what is the conflict? Somebody wanted, but so, how does the character get what he or she needs? How does he or she solve the problem? So are the events that lead up to the solution, and then how do they solve their problem? How do they finally solve or fix their problem? Then is how is the problem solved, and what does the character do afterwards? Somebody wanted, but so then. Awesome. So now, boys and girls, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to Rashida Jones. She's going to read us a story called Please Please the Bees. While she's reading the story, I want you to kind of glance over here at the story map that I've already filled out. After she's done reading the story, we will come back to the story map and we'll kind of talk through it as we go back through the text. All right, sit back and enjoy, boys and girls.
To read Please Please the Bees, and illustrated by Gerald Kelly.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to start that over.
Welcome to Storyline Online, brought to you by the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. I'm Rashida Jones, and today I'm going to read Please Please the Bees, written and illustrated by Gerald Kelly. Benedict was a creature of habit. He liked to do the same thing every day. Every morning he woke up at the same time. Every morning he stretched, he scratched, he yawned a great yawn. Every morning the bees delivered 3 jars full of honey. Benedict ate the same breakfast he'd eaten since he was just a fuzzy cub, toast with honey and tea with extra honey. Next came his daily routine, practicing, perfecting his honey cake recipe, knitting, and running errands. At night, he'd read, then have one last cup of honey tea before bed. Life was sweet. Until one morning, things weren't the same. In fact, something terribly unsame had happened. There was no more honey. The bees had gone on strike. Benedict's breakfast wasn't the same without honey. Without his honey tea, he couldn't knit. Practice was dreadful. He didn't even bother with the errands. Benedict became deeply discouraged. Just then, he heard someone say, "Hey you, in the fur coat!" It was a very small bee with a remarkably loud voice. "We need to talk," said the bee. "Talk?" grumbled Benedict. "I let you all live in my yard. All I ask for is a few jars of honey. You should be grateful, not go on strike." "A few jars," said the bee. "Buddy, we deliver 3 jars of honey to you every day. Every month, every year. Do the math, Einstein." "The hive is a wreck," the bee continued. "It's all we can do to keep the walls from falling in. The roof leaks. Wind blows through the cracks. The last 3 queens up and quit on us because of the lousy work conditions." The bee showed Benedict the garden. "Look," the bee said, "weeds everywhere. We have to fly miles away just to find enough flowers to make our honey. So we voted to strike." "You're taking this for granted," the bee declared. "You want honey? Things need to change. It's up to you, Bear." And with that, the very small bee flew off. The thought of losing his honey sent a chill down Benedict's spine. He had a lot to think about. "Maybe I've been too selfish," Benedict said to himself. "I never thought about what the bees need. But how am I going to make this right?" So he did some research. he did a little shopping. And he did a lot of work. Benedict even learned how to harvest honey. I suppose it's a bit rude to expect them to do it all themselves, he thought. Finally, he was ready to show the bees all the work he'd done. What would they think? He held his breath as he waited. Then he heard the remarkably loud voice of the very small bee. Drop the signs, girls! Time to get back to work. These days, Benedict is still a creature of habit. He still has his daily routine, but he doesn't take the honey for granted anymore. He knows his life is sweet. But now, it's even sweeter. For everyone. The end. I really enjoyed this book because it's all about being able to live with each other and respect each other and give and take, because that's the best part about being in a community, is being able to live together and have everybody's life be sweet at the same time. Thank you for watching Storyline Online. Make sure to watch all our other stories. Keep watching and keep reading.
All right, what a wonderful story. So now let's go through our story map, because this is going to be the map that you're going to be filling out this week and next week for the big red lollipop in a different story next week. So this story map has all of our story elements that we just talked about. It has your setting, where and when does the story take place. It has the characters, and not just our character who is our main character. It's got the problem. What's the main problem? Not just a problem, but the main problem in the story, okay? Then it has our beginning, our middle, and our middle is where we list the events that add up to the solution to our main problem. And then you have your ending. So let's go through our story that we just read. So this story was called Please Please the Bees. In the beginning, and I'm retelling the story, I'm telling it in my own words. Benedict was going through his daily routine, and most of them included honey, because he's a bear and he just loves honey. So the setting was at Benedict's house, and he's a bear, so it could have been his den. So the setting is Benedict's house or den. The characters, the main character is Benedict, okay? And if you realize, I'm writing complete sentences, boys and girls. So also in your Google Classroom, you'll see that I have included, it's called a group retelling game, but it also gives you a sentence stem to help you start your sentence, okay? So you can say the main character is, his or her problem is, the first thing that happened is, the second thing that happened is, and the problem is solved when, okay? Those are the sentence stems that you can use while you're filling out your story map. All right, so the main character is Benedict. So let's go down to the problem. It has all the thunder, the lightning bolts, and the cloud, because this is when stuff goes wrong. So the main problem is that there is no more honey because the bees go on strike. So when someone goes on strike, that means they don't like how things are going. So they said they're going to stop doing whatever it was that they're doing. All right, so now we're in the middle of the story. The first thing that happened, you see how I'm using my sentence stem. The first thing that happened is Benedict did not feel like doing anything without the honey. His life was not the same without the honey. The second thing that happened was a bee came and talked to Benedict about how he was asking them for too much honey and the conditions of the beehive. He said there were leaks and the wind blows through and the beehive was just terrible. So they said he was making too much, asking for too much honey, and then that their beehive wasn't nice. So they said they were done. They were not making any more honey. Then Benedict was very sad and thought about how the bees felt. He began to come up with some ways to fix their problems. And so Benedict's his solution is Benedict researched and learned how to harvest honey and how to help the bees. The bees began to make honey again. And at the end of the story, Benedict is thankful for his life with the bees. Thank you, boys and girls.